Six-time F1 world champion Lewis Hamilton has begun work on improving diversity in motorsport, with the Brit launching a new commission that will engage youth from black backgrounds in engineering. The Hamilton Commission, a partnership with England's Royal Academy of Engineering, will use motorsport as a vehicle to advance opportunities via education and the STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it's a program Hamilton hopes will engage tangible and measurable change, one leading to employment in F1 or other engineering sectors. When I look back in 20 years, I want to see the sport that gave a shy, working-class black kid from Stevenage so much opportunity become as diverse as the complex and multicultural world we live in, he said. Imola hasn't hosted a Grand Prix since 2006, with its F1 action since then limited to events like its annual Minardi Day, where in 2018, Mercedes' former technical advisor Aldo Costa got a run in the W04. But Red Bull B team Alpha Tauri is heading to the classic Italian track this week for a filming day, in which it will run its 2020 car, as just the second squad to do so post-COVID-19. Though its AT01 will be limited to just 100 kilometers. With both drivers getting track time, and Pierre Gasly especially excited, as he admitted exclusively to the Inside Line.
I'm gonna love it. I know it already, and I'm just super excited to go there because Imola, I think, is one of my favorite tracks. I raced there in 2 liters, and I think just the history from that track, the layout, I think in Formula One it must be something really special.
Imola is one of a handful of classic European tracks vying for a place on F1's revised calendar, along with Hockenheim, Mugello and Portimao in Portugal's Algarve region.
I think it would be great, especially if we can't go overseas, you know, like to add this, not really new tracks because they've been part of Formula One at some point, but in the last few years we haven't been there.
Silverstone kept the good times rolling last week, with Racing Point driver Lance Stroll the first to taste a 2020 spec F1 car since COVID-19, with the Canadian back in the RP20 on Wednesday. The squad also got to grips with the sport's new protocols, with the masks clearly on show, before it was helmets on for pit stop practice. On Thursday and Friday, it was crack F3 team Carlin's turn, but with some very familiar faces. McLaren's Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, who dealt with a wet track that forced them to find the grip.
The weather hasn't been with us today, unfortunately. Not at all. But at least we've had a lot of fun driving in the wet. It was nice to feel a car and feel Silverstone, a great track again. And I've enjoyed it. It's been great fun.
Over in Austria, Esteban Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo notched up 258 laps in 2018's RS18, equivalent to over 3.5 race distances, ahead of next week's season opener at the Red Bull Ring. Over in Italy, Ferrari signaled its return to racing with a special run. Charles Leclerc, the first F1 driver of the modern era to drive through the streets of Maranello. The Monegasque was strapped into 2020's Challenger that will complete the Scuderia's 1,000th race, with Leclerc's path starting from the Officina Classiche, Ferrari's original race workshop. Leclerc made his way past the Maranello Museum, en route to Fiorano, the Prancing Horse's famous private test track, where he spoke to longtime Ferrari test pilot Marc Genet.
It felt amazing. Obviously, it's been a very long time, and it felt like forever. So yes, to be back behind the wheel, even though it's on streets, but very special streets, how we are in Maranello. Yeah, it was a good day. I couldn't push the car yet, but it's coming soon, and the season will start soon. So I just can't wait to be back in the car, and this time pushing it to its limit.
Ferrari will fly to Austria with lots of baggage to boost its pace in the opening races. The Prancing Horse set to install a revised gearbox and engine. The Scuderia was expecting to be behind rivals Mercedes and Red Bull, given its pre-season testing form, with a gearbox issue discovered that required it to stiffen up the assembly. The associated cost in weight and aero balance more than offset by an improvement in handling, along with tyre performance and life. The prancing horse, which tested in Mugello this week on Tuesday, also had 15 additional horsepower via its second-generation engine. The upgrade enjoyed without penalty. Over at Brackley in the UK, Mercedes has fired up production to clear its development backlog ahead of next weekend's first race in Austria, with a major upgrade planned for its W11. The Silver Arrows topped pre-season testing on both time and distance, but knows that to stay ahead, it's got months of production to catch up on.
So our challenge now is to make sure that that quarter of a year of development can get off the drawing boards and onto the car as swiftly as possible. We hope to have a chunk of that for the first race in Austria.
Mercedes had 450 people working from home before shutdown, ensuring manufacturing would be flat out upon return.
And so we got quite a lot of ideas about how to make it quicker. And quite a lot of those ideas were already in train, in process through the design office before we were forced to shut down 9 weeks ago.
The difficult news continues at McLaren, with Sky News UK reporting the British marque is considering selling off a minority stake in its race team to boost its journey back to the top. McLaren, which has a combined 20 world championships since it entered the sport at Monaco 1966, heads into the coming season as F1's midfield mover. The historic squad back on the rise, with Carlos Sainz's podium last season, its first in 5 years, predating its nightmare Honda collaboration. But the pandemic has taken its toll, with the brand last month announcing it will shed 1,200 jobs, 70 from its racing division, in spite of its success in fighting for F1's lower $145 million cost cap. McLaren is majority-owned by Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund Mumtalakat, with 14% held by TAG's CEO Mansour Ojeh. 10% is owned by Canadian billionaire Michael Latifi. It's reported the idea of a minority sale is still at the conceptual stage, with a 20 to 30% share raising tens of millions. McLaren's racing business runs its F1, IndyCar, and esports squads. Plans for Bahrain to host Grands Prix on 2 different layouts are gaining traction, with organizers stating the oval-like outer circuit is ready to go in hosting the second of its to-be-confirmed doubleheader. Bahrain's desert track has 5 configurations, all of which hold the FIA's Grade 1 license required for F1, with the race organizers able to run the outer and inner layouts at the same time. Bahrain's 3.664-kilometer outer circuit uses the opening part of the lap, but peels off at turn 4, with the drivers blasting through a series of high-speed sweepers before reconnecting with the F1 track at turn 13. With the contrasting layout ensuring a completely different race. It's a track where you're going to run the cars on minimum downforce, so there will be slipstreaming. Hopefully we can have 3 DRS zones, said the circuit's CEO Sheikh Salman bin Isa Al Khalifa. Formula One pit stops are a miracle of speed, precision, and teamwork. 20 mechanics changing 4 tires in less than 2 seconds, with Red Bull setting the world record in Brazil last year. 1.82 seconds on Max Verstappen's RB15 car en route to the win. But that record could now be hard to break, with development on pit equipment to be frozen from September 30, saving on costs, with squads forever seeking technical advantages in all areas. All teams will have to provide a full list of equipment to the FIA by July 22, with free changes able to be made before the September deadline, after which approval will be needed. The governing body originally looked at standardizing pit equipment, but teams would need to have bought it, forcing costs up.